Hey guys, welcome back to another What If Here. Today we're doing part 3 to what if Naruto was the new Ninetales. If you want to know about what happened in the last part, then I'll be linking in the description down below, which will take you to a playlist where I watch the previous 2 parts in order, and any other future part that gets added into this series. With that out of the way, let's get into this. So, yeah, of course, some months would go by as it would finally be the day of the tuning exams. Though what would sort of change, as I'm kind of going to gloss over the tuning exams somewhat. The first 2 parts has, yeah. So the first part would generally go all the same, pretty much the written test part, and kind of leads into introduction, and yeah, somewhat that would kind of all go the same pretty much, and the somewhat written test would also go pretty much the same with Naruto, though instead of somewhat seemingly kind of struggling with, or at least with, well, no, it still seemingly looked like he was struggling, but he wasn't. He just wasn't going to do it, but had to pretend that he was trying to do it. And yeah, Haku obviously somewhat would have just used some of his ice mirrors to, well, act like ice, but pretty much somewhat make them so incredibly thin that it pretty much just be kind of, for them, they would just almost pretty much see right the way through it. And yeah, they kind of really had to look very, very carefully to notice the presence of ice, or an object, a very transparent object there. Yeah. Anyway, though, pretty much so that's how Haku would have gotten pretty much the information to pass the test, though he would have also have known some of it, being a somewhat semi-rogue ninja and all. And yeah, of course, somewhat the Forest of Death, the part in which would change, that would be pretty much the somewhat fight with the Snake-san in Orochimaru, as of course Naruto wouldn't have the Ninetales chakra to aid him in that fight, as Riley was the Ninetales pretty much. So yeah, of course he wouldn't really get any boost from going into his kind of Kitsune state, or in other words, revealing his ears and tails, besides from better hearing, better somewhat night vision, and then a better sense of smell, and yeah, nothing much. Though if he went into his Kitsune state, he could, not Kitsune, if he went into his Fox state, he could pretty much vaporize Orochimaru by making a tailed beast bomb and either swallowing it or just shooting it whole at him. And yeah, probably swallowing and then, shooting or at least then letting the beam, the highly explosive, the beam out. And yeah, anyway, though, of course, somewhat Orochimaru would end up knocking, or at least somewhat due to trying to obviously somewhat beat him, though Orochimaru would end up knocking Haku out, making Haku as more of a threat, and then somewhat knocking, or at least once somewhat Naruto started kind of getting on his nerves, he'd also knock Naruto out, and would end up, of course, being able, with those two out, would end up kind of frightening Sasuke on the spot, to the point where he'd manage to bite Sasuke, and from there he would end up leaving. Of course, Sakura would end up managing to awake Haku, and we're trying to wake Naruto, but due to the fact Naruto's just passed out not that, like, a couple of seconds to a minute ago, somewhat waking him up would be a no-go. He wouldn't wake up, though as Haku had been out for at least 2 to 3 minutes plus, would have somewhat awoke when Sakura. Anyway, yeah. After, of course, somewhat that, from there, of course, they would end up somewhat, or at least, Sakura would end up taking Sasuke, and Haku would take Naruto. Pretty much, and they would wind up at the same tree, though, as somewhat they'd arrive, Haku would just casually dump Naruto on the ground. Though not enough time had gone by, but, yeah, enough time had gone by so now that Naruto should be waking up, and so would do so, kind of causing him to somewhat startle awake, and would somewhat groan as he'd somewhat strike his somewhat back, and would somewhat send a glare at Haku, though would also ask somewhat Sakura where they currently were in the Forest of Death. And yeah, so they'd end up kind of talking about a sort of routine and that. And yeah, of course, from there, somewhat the next day when the trio, Black and Kennen, would try and attack Team 7, of course, Sakura wasn't just the only one there, of course, or at least she would probably be the one somewhat awake, but she'd end up, of course, getting Naruto and Haku, or the just explosive tag would get them both awake, and so with pretty much the two of them alone, somewhat would be able to beat the three of them. And of course, somewhat attached to that, and realising how useless she somewhat was, as she was kind of used as somewhat of captive, but it had failed with somewhat Naruto's somewhat Haku just using a kind of somewhat ice mirror to just casually get behind and knock the idiotic woman Konrichi out. And yeah, though after somewhat knocking the three out and getting Scroll, of course Sasuke would end up awakening, and Sakura, and with somewhat Sakura kind of calming him down out of his somewhat slightly angered state, and the Cosmo somewhat retreating, they would end up, of course, going, and yeah, of course, they would end up running into, I forgot his name, the somewhat kind of, Kabuto. And yeah, cool. Kabuto would somewhat at the initial, well, they would kind of be somewhat skeptic, and as they would end up, of course, turning down his offer a couple of times, even when he'd somewhat highly suggest it. Though as they would somewhat go, Haku would realise that he's kind of following them in shadow, so he'd quickly disappear, and before Sasuke would be able to react, Haku would pretty much put a sunburn into the side of his neck, in the place in which would put him in a death-like state, and would just pull it back out, leaving them somewhat that, and kind of rejoining the team. Of course, they, or at least somewhat Sasuke and either that would somewhat even notice all that, and either somewhat not able to continue onwards, though Naruto would somewhat ask, though when he'd somewhat arrive, somewhat what he was kind of somewhat doing, as Haku would simply say, dealing with a potential spy, or something along those lines. And yeah, they would somewhat, of course, continue onward, somewhat as Naruto would kind of start feeling like as Naruto noticed they'd walk past the same tree, he'd also somewhat realise that they've been walking in circles, though the others didn't think so. So he'd end up stopping, and after kind of telling the somewhat three of them that he's pretty sure they've just been walking in circles, Sakura would put her hands together. Sakura would put her hands together. Haku would do so as well, somewhat both releasing the Genjutsu, and Sasuke would activate his Sharingan, or at least dispelling it that way. And the reason why it didn't work for Naruto was, well, it had to be somewhat Genjutsu, and more specifically kind of the well, the only genjutsu that really worked on him was the one in which Madara can use that genjutsu, being the only one to work with the nine-tails or the tailed beasts, and with Naruto pretty much being the nine-tailed fox, or at least the new one, the same rule would apply. So yeah, pretty much immune to all genjutsu besides that specific one. And yeah, anyway, though, of course, after that they'd end up after dealing with them, getting the scroll, they'd end up arriving just in time. Of course, with that, it would mean 3 people would be out a whole team would be out due to, of course, someone not arriving, or at least whole in time, with Capital obviously somewhat not arriving, or at least not going with the team, which means he wouldn't obviously somewhat his team already of course be there. He wouldn't obviously be there to meet up with his team, as he'd still be in the forest, somewhat in the tree where Haku had left him. So yeah. Anyway, from there, somewhat Haku would actually kind of end up having to go up against somewhat 10-10, and yeah, though pretty much the fight, and yeah, though besides from that, the fights would generally go the same. I think, that was also Sasuke's one, though he'd somewhat get a pass with his, and somewhat, or at least kind of somewhat agreeing with Kakashi, would somewhat silently allow somewhat, would kind of silently give, would somewhat, or at least notice obviously the cast back in that, and would kind of give him a somewhat silent, would give him the pass so that he could, go with Kakashi to have it sealed. And yeah, though of course Kakashi would arrive before any of his somewhat free left Genin somewhat would fight, and yeah, all Sakura would end up, of course, end up going up against Ino, like in canon, and they'd end up drawing. Though, what else? Naruto's fight would also go, of course, like in canon, somewhat, not having the somewhat hold back, not having obviously his chakra controller, or at least his chakra being inhibited in a way. He'd end up having, of course, he'd end up easily being able to beat Kiba, unlike he did in canon. And yeah, of course, somewhat from there, the 1 month period would go by, though he wouldn't really have to arrive at Haku, as Haku would actually go and train with the medic mainly, as he kind of, or at least defeated Tendon by simply using a water dome, and a thick water dome like that to stop. Not really, they did stop, but the water mainly slowed them down to the point where they generally stopped. And yeah, so that, and then somewhat got a knockout by simply transforming the water dome into a water dragon. And yeah, of course, keeping the fact that he could also do wind, and of course the combination of the both ice release. And yeah, of course, and yeah, so from there, though, of course Naruto then, or at least would initially end up winding up with Ebisu, who they would, or at least he would somehow end up being somewhat knocked out by Jiraiya, and Naruto would end up getting Jiraiya to teach him, so he'd end up winding up with the Toad Summoning Contract, and though Jiraiya would try and convince Naruto that he had a second chakra nature, in which he knew he didn't, as he was the 9 tails, he knew it. And yeah, though Jiraiya was obviously trying to convince him, but was somewhat failing. And yeah, though eventually Naruto kind of just went along with it, and obviously somewhat no matter what Naruto, or at least Jiraiya tried doing with Naruto, just seemingly the syllables apparently maybe too tight, so yeah. Anyway, though Jiraiya ended up still doing the same and push somewhat down the canyon like in canon to try and get him to get into the fox to, use the fox's chakra. Of course, that wouldn't work, and Naruto would actually end up using his own chakra to summon Gambunta. And yeah, though of course having somewhat more stamina than he did in canon, he'd end up actually just he'd end up somewhat successful in making it, and Gambunta accepting him as a summoner of the Summit clan. And yeah, though from there, but yeah, Jiraiya would end up teaching Naruto. Jiraiya would end up teaching Naruto a wind and fire, a wind somewhat jutsu and a fire jutsu as well. And yeah, known, or at least, Naruto had somewhat told him that he knew of his elemental affinities, and had told him that those two, in which Jiraiya would be somewhat surprised, but had figured kind of having the fox somewhat inside, maybe the fox had either fire, because he knew Kushina and Minto both had wind, so it made sense Naruto had wind as well, and he probably got fire because of the fox or that. And yeah, he pretty much got fire because of fox, and also scorch slash blaze slash hellfire release. Yeah, pretty much a combination of wind and fire together to make a much stronger make a much stronger fire. Yeah. Anyway, and so from there, of course, somewhat the Naruto somewhat fight with what's his name? Neji would go down similarly. The only thing that would be different would be Naruto using a substitution just prior to Neji getting him being the point in where Neji somewhat would land the 8 gates, but he would manage to end up doing the replacement jutsu with a wood stump or something like that. Naruto did manage to avoid somewhat Neji, just barely. And yeah, though Naruto would end up getting the win, but again, just barely, pretty much panting from mainly having to use a lot of somewhat chakra in either just replacing himself or somewhat amplifying his strength and speed to kind of try and outmatch Neji. And yeah, though from there, of course, fights would somewhat go on, and yeah, Haku would, or at least somewhat who would anyway, though, or at least though Sasuke and Kakashi would arrive prior to Haku's fight, as somewhat Hiruzen would try and move it, but obviously Hiruzen would somewhat move it to at least last moment, though he did kind of tell them that if they arrived, then it'd be somewhat so prior to, or at least somewhat the start, just as he was about to start the second to last match, Kakashi and Sasuke would arrive, with then it changing to Sasuke, 'cause, Sasuke, Kakashi, and Sasuke would arrive, with then it changing to Sasuke, and Sasuke, and Sasuke, and Sasuke would arrive, with then it changing to Sasuke, and Sasuke, and Sasuke, and Sasuke would arrive, with then it changing to Sasuke, and what's his name, Gaara's fight, and that pretty much being like in canon with it causing the exact same events. Though of course Naruto not being affected by Genjutsu would end up running down and helping, or at least going to help Sasuke, though it would end up running the same time that he did in canon, mainly due to like trying to deal with what's his name, Kankuro, though. Yeah, and the only reason why he managed to obviously somewhat get away was Shino somewhat asking Naruto if he could take his place, and that he would be able to somewhat and that Naruto would be able to aid Sasuke. Naruto would somewhat just nod and would kind of somewhat thank Shino, as then Shino would finally have his go at the puppet user. And so from there, Naruto would end up arriving, and the fight from there would would end up going somewhat the same, just slightly less urgency, as there would be no, it's still the same kind of emergent necessity, though Gambrinta wouldn't have to kind of hold back, wouldn't really have to hold back due to really, no incapacitated useless people, aka Sakura, being somewhat stuck to a tree, knocked out, as Sakura would be with Haku, as they would be somewhat getting civilians to the bunkers, to kind of have somewhat bunker, giant ass mountain bunker. So that's where she'd somewhat be. Those two would be, as those two would also kind of release the Genjutsu, noticing it. Yeah, anyway, though, so somewhat from there, a similar thing would end up happening with somewhat Naruto kind of convincing Gaara that he didn't have to kill no more, and yeah, of course Gaara would end up apologising to his brother and sister as they would kind of take him away, and Sasuke would kind of look at Naruto and would ask if it would be a wise decision to let him go, and which Naruto would sort of look at him and in somewhat nod, stating that it'd probably be for the best to kind of let them go, and that they should more specifically get back, and there are more pressing charges than 3 people going. They were leaving, and Sasuke would go, well, okay, it'd be your fault if they somewhat don't, type deal, and of course they would end up going back to hearing the Fad had died, and yeah, of course 3 days later that would be the funeral, and that, and from there Joe would end up taking Naruto with him to go fetch Tsunade. That whole deal would be pretty much the same, as there was no real fox somewhat there, besides one somewhat kind of healing a muscle and somewhat the heart, but yeah, pretty much all of that would have just gone like in canon, so that entire arc would pretty much just be the same, though Naruto would be somewhat stronger, though of course would try and use the Rasengan, and obviously somewhat show that he won his bet with Tsunade, as he could form a Rasengan, granted with a clone, but hey, that bet was to form a Rasengan, not form a Rasengan with only one hand. Though he could technically still win that by using a clone, because he was only using one of his hands. After all, he wasn't using both his hands, and then a shadow clone as well, so he could technically win there. But anyway, though, and yeah, of course when they'd come back, I think it was like I know it was definitely not the same day, they got back. Sasuke, kind of seemingly sort of went up and had a fight with Naruto. It wasn't the same day. Yeah. And it'd potentially be about probably a couple of days to maybe a week. Probably erring on the side of probably 3 to 5 days. Say probably say four, somewhat about 4 days had passed, and yeah, somewhat Sasuke and Naruto's fight would kind of go down the same. The only reason why Haku wouldn't be there would be because Haku would be talking with the Hokage at the very moment and being promoted from getting into Special Jonin, mainly because the third had planned on having Haku be promoted to somewhat Special Jonin due to the fact that he could use ice release and that, and yeah, and that he was mainly currently seemingly too specialised in kind of his Geki Genkai, and or at least somewhat what Hiruzen had presumed he was somewhat kind of heavily specialised in. So yeah, that, and Kakashi hadn't really kind of bothered to try and somewhat do hand-to-hand combat with Haku. So yeah, so but of course, so yeah, and somewhat from there, of course, he would end up arriving to hearing somewhat a seemingly no, or somewhat Naruto and or Sasuke, somewhat, Sakura saying, Naruto, Sasuke, or at least, oh no, he would hear Sakura say stop, and he would end up realising they were on the roof, and would change into the roof and would somewhat appear and kind of see just though somewhat he'd get there to seeing, or at least somewhat Sasuke pulling out his fist from a tank, and Naruto similarly pulling his hand away to a very small hole. And yeah, though, and of course there's somewhat sensei seemingly on Sasuke's one though, which immediately hit somewhat, or at least as if Naruto's one had the least amount of damage, then rising on the tower in which Sasuke's hand went through, unless the one Sasuke was on was the least damage, which meant that if Naruto's attack, whatever it was, did that little damage in front, it probably did more damage in the rear, the back of it, like some type of attack that went through and then blew out the rear somehow. And yeah, of course, pretty much the Sangon, of course, somewhat the second the Sangon got into the water, it obviously made contact with the water, it spiraled the water and pretty much caused water press to momentarily spike much higher than obviously the tower was meant to obviously contain, and blew the rear out. Yeah, of course, Kakashi momentarily trying to someone tell Sasuke that he shouldn't have used that jutsu against a comrade, though Sasuke would just grunt and flip over, and of course feel drip he'd look up to see a massive, obviously the the actual true damage of Naruto's attack. And yeah, of course from there Kakashi, so that seemed to end up happening. Of course, we end up getting informed that pretty much Kakashi's all alone with his teammates, and that all being 6 foot under or somewhat alive, but the reason why his own sensei was dead, and pretty much Naruto didn't have a mother and father, so, and was the new Nine Tails, so way to go. Anyway, and yeah, of course after after something like that, he'd obviously go on the mission that Tsunade had signed him, whatever that was, and yeah, of course, Sasuke would end up then getting attacked, and then later that night would end up going to leave Sakura trying to stop him, but he would end up knocking her out, thanking her for being there or whatever. And yeah, of course, she'd end up waking up at around about midnight or an hour after midnight, and we'd end up, of course, telling someone Tsunade, and Tsunade would end up calling upon Shikamaru, who was now a Chunin, and would end up telling him to go get, or at least, or no, you don't, well, no, or at least Haku and Shikamaru would both be there, and she would end up, well, of course, well, actually not only that, Naruto would also be there, as Haku kind of lived with Naruto, so pretty much Naruto, or yeah, so pretty much both would probably just be at the door kind of wondering, what the hell was going on, so the other would just go, wow, even though she may have only wanted one, she'd probably end up having the both of them, plus it also concerned both of them, so just tell the both of them the other, just some thoughts, and of course told the both of them. From there both would get dressed, and so yeah, when she'd seen the both of them, it kind of clicked in her head that both kind of did live in the same house, two different bedrooms, but the same house, same building. And yeah, of course that would also spark somewhat, or at least would have her somewhat to remember about or at least a message somewhat in the letter, in which was stated to promote Haku to a special Jonin, was also stated to keep an eye on Naruto when she'd asked Hiuzin's Anbu. Two of them had, or at least one of them had somewhat told them, or at least told her to ask somewhat, but yeah, it would somewhat tell her to ask Cat, in which Cat would somewhat tell her to just ask Naruto, or at least, yeah, and that it was a secret in which if she told her, she would be killed. She pretty much S rank, and that only Naruto could say, so yeah. Anyway, and yeah, those should decide that, when they got back, hopefully Dom will still being alive, would ask Naruto then, and so yeah, they would end up, of course, getting the same people that they did in canon, and would end up leaving. The unique differences is that, of course, once or at least somewhat, Naruto wouldn't have to initially wait for, wouldn't somewhat end up initially, obviously, fighting the bone person, I don't remember his name, but Kimaru. Naruto wouldn't end up fighting Kimaru, as of course Haku would be there. Haku would tell Naruto that, of course, Team 7 was, or at least somewhat, he was, originally a part of the original formed Team 7, so he should go and get Sasuke, and Naruto would begrudgingly do so, knowing that Haku was better than him. He wasn't stupid, and yeah, so he'd end up going, and of course, when Lee would arrive, Lee would try and convince Haku to go with, or at least to go after Naruto and Sasuke, though Haku would state that it would be best if he stayed there to help, so that obviously they could defeat the person. And yeah, Lee would somewhat nod, and yeah, would end up somehow getting himself drunk in that, so yeah. And of course, plus then the backup sometime later, there'd be 3 against a single person, and yeah. Though, of course, by then Haku was kind of more somewhat there to keep an eye on Gaara, and somewhat Gaara knew so, but of course though once Kimaru had been defeated, he'd simply stated that Naruto had kind of changed him, and of course, somewhat at hitting that, Haku would kind of end up, somewhat Haku and Guy would kind of end up somewhat talking about their somewhat interaction with the somewhat with Naruto, and Lee kind of learning on how Naruto can simply make friends out of enemies, and yeah, with somewhat Lee commenting that, or at least Naruto, or at least similarly with this unknown similar abilities of his, he would definitely be aware, he would definitely be worthy of becoming Hokage, in which the two would nod, and Haku would sort of end up saying maybe that's how the somewhat Tsunade Senju kind of came back and became the fifth Hokage, not fourth. Yeah. Anyway, though, from there, so much. Naruto Sasuke's fight would kind of go down the same. So, yeah, of course, somewhat. Now, of course, somewhat. The only difference, again, there was no Fox Chakra mode that Naruto did enter. So, somewhat when he'd be hit with Sasuke's, obviously, somewhat Chidori. Of course, somewhat he'd end up hitting you, somewhat obviously water like he did in canon, but of course, he would end up just, or at least thinking he was going to somewhat die here, or though he'd end up remembering that surely he was the front, so surely he'd be able to somewhat maybe heal it, and of course he'd realize that he would also have to go out, which meant kind of not holding himself necessarily back, so he'd let his attempts at which would then rapidly close the hole, but would put a definitely bigger dampener on his, it would hit him somewhat more in stamina. Though they would keep on fighting, and of course as the fight would wind down, where they would end up using their last attack, Naruto would end up remembering what Sasuke said and would try and mark, or kind of scratching Sasuke's headband, and which he would successfully do, though Sasuke would end up getting another Chidori out on Naruto, which would cause Naruto to fall down, ears and tails kind of disappearing, but the hole also quickly closing and healing, though Sasuke would think about momentarily killing him, but would just shake his head, leaving his forehead protected too late by Naruto, and he would proceed to kind of somewhat walk off to go to Orochimaru. Of course, Kakashi would then kind of arriving at Kakashi that he wasn't there in time, and would try and ask Pakun, but Pakun would shake his head, stating that he couldn't smell such Sasuke as it was starting to rain, and plus he kind of had more pressing issues with Naruto, so after kind of somewhat letting out a sigh of relief that Naruto was still alive, and would obviously go, and from there a week would go by in which Naruto would end up waking up, and yeah, of course, and though when someone Tsunade would go to check on him, if anyone was in there, should request them to leave, and would somewhat seal the room. Naruto, noticing somewhat some black lines, would kind of somewhat stiffen, knowing that she was going to either say something or want to know something, and he figured that want to know was potentially his potentially his something like his entails or something like that, and yeah, it would indeed, though he would end up, of course, feeling much closer to Tsunade than he did with Hiruzen, and trusting her somewhat more. He would end up revealing to her that he was indeed the actual nine-tailed fox, and shapeshifting one of his hands into somewhat a paw hand thing, would cut the bandages around his stomach, and would send Chakra a small storage scroll, well, not scroll, but seal would appear, but no seemingly obviously somewhat seal, especially what was stated to be the foxes, seal the an 8 trigram tetragram seal. There was none of that. So yeah, and so of course somewhat she'd end up asking obviously what he could potentially somewhat do in that, and yeah, and so from there someone should end up asking if all this time someone who knew, and Richard only say 2 people knew, those 2 people being Ambu, those, or at least about 3 people, those who momentarily think about the 3rd one should go, oh right, Haku, Richard, not that, and yeah, though should end up asking about the other 2, and you'd say Ambu. She'd stout him and she'd go, you can't tell their names now, so you'd look a bit hesitant at first, but would sort of let out a sign and would state Tenzo and Yugal, or Wood Person and Kachan. She'd kind of crack an eyebrow, but would somewhat nod. And from there, of course, she'd just tell him to somewhat rest up, and yeah, you'd put his nails away as you'd deactivate the somewhat silence and seal, and would leave. And yeah, now she'd kind of be put in a somewhat unique place as somewhat she'd now think about potentially promoting Naruto to Chunin, as well, yeah, being able to, obviously transform into a sort of fox state and use the Beast Bomb and that, and obviously, the fight he also revealed that he did have a Geki Kenkai, that being Scorch release, Pan 5 release, or whatever you like to call it, 105 combined together. And yeah, so she's somewhat thinking about that, and this is where I'm going to end this part here, guys. So if you have enjoyed this part, do tell me in the comments down below, and if you want to, I don't know, yeah guys, if you guys and girls, if you guys have enjoyed this, do tell me in the comments down below, and of course if you want to see somewhat more of this part, do tell me. And yeah guys, hope you guys have a good day or night, depending on wherever you are and whenever you watch this, and good bye.